Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to wait for you guys to start tuning in. Good morning, Instagram. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Facebook. I'm going to wait for you guys to tune in. I'm coming on earlier than I normally do. I had a busy yesterday, so I couldn't come on live yesterday, and I can't go on live later on today. That's why I'm coming on now. But come on in. Today's going to be a good topic. If this is your first time, definitely comment below. Let me give you a shout out. Let me know where you're tuning in from. What city, what state, what country? Macedonia's from New York. Good morning. Did you move? I feel like Macedonia's, you were in like Washington before. Comment, let me know where you are. Boss Lady Amoy, good morning. Akeem, good morning. Pretty Petite, morning. Boss Solarmi, Happy New Year. Chooks, good morning. Scanabana, good morning. Can you go to Jamaica on an emergency passport? I don't understand what you mean. Like, on what emergency passport? Like your Jamaican passport or what? Like, I'm not sure what you're asking. Plug Queen from Trinidad, good morning. In Texas, good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ayesha. I am an immigration lawyer. I represent clients all over the United States with immigration cases. So, if you've got a family-based immigration, whether it's with your spouse, you want to file for your parents, your children, fiance, citizenship, Vow cases, based on extreme cruelty and abuse, T visa cases, U visa cases, motion to terminate in removal cases. We handle all of that. Original Chelsea says it's so hard to book you. A random lady keeps answering. It really isn't. You mean like someone in our call center picks up? Like I never pick up the phones because I'm in consults, but just you can schedule a consult by calling our number and just asking for me, and you should be able to book a consult with me. They can also send you a link to directly book with me if you want to book directly on the link. Our number is 407-995-6567. So today I really want to talk about how to speed up your case or how to increase the chance of getting approved for your immigration case quicker. And a lot of the stuff is going to seem like common sense and common knowledge and basic stuff, but you'd be amazed at how many people omit this step. So the first thing is that when you are submitting an application to immigration, you submit any and everything that applies to your case. So a lot of times people will say to me, especially when they've come from, somewhere else or somebody else helped them or some other, firm or notary or whatever it is, they'll say, oh, I submitted the forms. I'm like, okay, what else did you submit? They're like, well, we only submitted the forms. We're just going to wait for an RFE, which means a request for additional evidence to submit the rest of the stuff. That is 100% wrong approach when you're submitting an immigration case. When you submit an immigration case, you submit 100% of the credible evidence and everything that you can that will allow them to make a decision immediately without requesting for evidence. Think about it this way: like when you wait on them to send you a request for evidence, they give you 87 days, right, to submit that request for evidence. And then what ends up happening is that you go back in the back and they continue processing the other cases. So it does delay your case unnecessarily and for no reason. So when you're submitting an application, and this is for any kind of application, you want to not only submit the forms, you also want to submit evidence. So let me use two popular cases. For example, in a marriage-based case, or let's say you're doing like a Vow case, which is something that we specialize in. With a marriage-based case, you want to make sure that not only you're submitting the forms, you're submitting, proof of marriage, That's legal marriage. You're submitting proof of divorce. If you were divorced, you're submitting proof of your birth. Like, where were you guys? Where's your birth certificate? You want to submit proof of the relationship and that the relationship is real. Okay. You want to also make sure that if you do have affidavits or can provide affidavits, that you're also submitting at that time. And last but not the least, you want to make sure that you are submitting your medical if you're doing a marriage-based petition. This is different for VOW, so I'm just focused on marriage right now. So when you submit all those things, USCIS is able to sit down and look at all those things and decide, okay, this person, based on everything that they've submitted, they would qualify. And so let's just bypass interview and just approve them. Okay. With VOW cases, it's a little different because sort of the requirements are different, right? So with VOW cases, apart from, of course, some of those things that I mentioned, which you still need to submit, proof of legitimate marriage, proof of previous, marriage, your forms, you still want to make sure that you're submitting a very, very detailed and thorough declaration. A declaration is like your personal statement of basically what happened in your marriage, or what happened with your parent, or what happened with your child, and why you deserve to get this green card or this VOW approval based on what you experienced. You also want to make sure that if you're over the age of 14, that you are submitting, proof of good moral character. So they're typically looking for 3 years of good moral character. So like if you have not lived in the United States for 3 years, and like, let's say you moved here last year, what year are we now, 2024? So let's say you moved here in maybe like January of 2023. The only record they're going to have for you here in the United States is 1 year's worth of stuff. So you want to make sure that you're going to get that police clearance or proof from wherever you came from before you entered into the United States for at least 2 more years to make sure that you cover that 3-year timeline. You also want to make sure that any kind of credible evidence that you have, to show that this happened to you, that you're able to submit that. There's not one example that fits all. There's no one, okay, I don't have a police report. Because I don't have a police report, do I still qualify? You don't necessarily need a police report if you have other credible evidence. And that's why I always use the phrase, any credible evidence. So you want to think about all the different things that you have that you can submit. You don't wait for USCIS to request that. These cases take a long time already. So when you can, you submit it. With VOW cases, though, we don't send medicals. You can, but we don't send medicals until our clients are approved. Because VOW cases take so long, the odds of the medical forms changing is very likely before that approval or before you get to the green card stage. So strategically with those ones, we would wait until the VOW cases get approved, go to medical and submit. So that's what we do in those cases. So now, let's say you did all these things and your case is still past normal processing time, or, with normal processing time, you want to be realistic and look at an average time. You can't submit your case in August and we're in January and say, oh my gosh, they've not made a decision on my case. That would not be realistic, or that's an unrealistic expectation. Now, do some people get approved in 2 months or 3 months? Yes, for marriage type cases, not VOW cases. However, it's not realistic. That is like, almost like a diamond in the rough where those happen. So, if you've submitted all those things, let's say for a typical marriage case, and by like month 10 to 12, nothing has happened with your case. At that point, that is a time to do an inquiry. There are many ways in which to try to get USCIS to bring your case back to the table. Number one, the first step to do an inquiry, if you have a non-domestic violence type case, is you reach out to USCIS. There are 2 ways in which you can reach out, well, 3 technically. But you can reach out to USCIS. You can do it either via phone, or you can do it via e-service request. You can go on their website and reach out to them and just do a summary of whatever it is. Usually by phone and online, you will be given a tracking number, like a case number, for you to follow up. And usually they will get back to you in a couple of weeks, to let you know. And if it's something that requires a tier 2, a lot of times that can get your case moving if they look and they see your case has passed normal processing time, okay? If that doesn't work, the next step would be two strategies. We've got two strategies, and this all really depends. For me, I make this decision based on the case type, why we're wanting USCIS to get involved, and how long the delay has been, like what stage of the case has the delay been, right? And this would be either going through your state congressman or senator, or through the USCIS Ombudsman Division. People always say, who's the ombudsman? And the ombudsman is a division. It's not like a person. It's like a division within the USCIS that can advocate for immigrants and these applications that are kind of like stuck in the bottleneck or whatever, just to go find out what's going on with those cases. So with the congressman or senator, I make the decision based on a client's zip code or what state they live in. So like strategically, I would look, okay, who's the congressman of the zip code? Are they people that are favorable to immigrants? Do they support immigration? etc. If they don't support immigration, I generally will go a different route, and they're just definitely like, and I say this to say like, oh, someone is asking for my number. It's 407-995-6567. Once you get off this live, you're going to see it on my profile. And I just realized I didn't put the ticker. Let me just put the ticker in YouTube and Facebook. So it should be on there right now. So, you go to your Congress. So if the congressman is favorable to immigration, we will definitely do an outreach. There are very many. So let me use Florida, for example, just because I know Florida really, really well as someone who lived there for a very long time. There's certain, immigration officers that are very favorable. For instance, like if you go to the office of Val Demings, who is a congresswoman in Orlando, Florida area, they are very, very pro-immigrant and they act and work very quickly. So if that is your district, that is wonderful. Whereas there are other Congress offices, I'm not going to name names, who are absolutely not and will completely ignore you. Okay. And then we look at the senators, senators in Florida, the two main senators, not the most friendly towards immigrants. Then if I see that in that case, I then look, is this something that we can get an ombudsman to push for the person, depending on where the case is? Because, with ombudsman, while you can submit a delayed case, the priority for them will be other types of extraordinary things that are happening. I know you guys saw a post that I posted this weekend, and using that as an example, we had a VOW client with her child who had submitted a VOW application. We got the VOW application approved. They asked us for the medicals. We submitted the medicals and the I-864Ws, and then the officer denied the case, basically saying that what was the reason they gave? That her signature was not an acceptable signature. So this was an example of where the officer made a mistake and wasn't following the rules of what an acceptable signature is. So in that case, we refused to pay for an appeals because this was not our client's fault. This was the officer's fault who had not received adequate training. So we went to the ombudsman and we sent also a letter to the field office director asking them they needed to reopen that case because this is their own error and they need to approve our clients. By the time it was submitted, it took about, I think, 3 to 4 days, and it was overturned, reopened, and they were both approved. So in those cases, the ombudsman is really, really helpful. And in cases where the delay has been really long, it's really, really helpful. They will go in there and they'll get them to at least open it and maybe even schedule you for an interview if you've been waiting. And then if all else fails with an ombudsman or a congressional assistance, the next step is doing a writ of mandamus, where you basically file a lawsuit against DHS for undue delay. When you're choosing or strategizing to file a lawsuit, you want to make sure that you have a really strong case and a high chance of approval for your case. So a lot of immigration is strategy. So, people think that is immigration not just about just filling a form and then they should make a decision. Yes, some people are going to have an easy experience where they just submit and that's all it is. But for most cases, and well, to be honest, all cases, at least in this firm, we look at it from a strategic standpoint. Like when we're looking at the application, we're looking to see, what could potentially cause a problem? If this could potentially cause a problem, how do we fix it before we submit? There's nothing worse than sending the problem to them, and then after you've sent the problem to them and the problem happens, coming to a lawyer, because sometimes our hands are tied. Listen, I believe in zealous advocacy and advocating for my clients when I can, even though they come to me after they've messed up their case. But sometimes the damage is so bad that there's not much we can do. And it's painful, like when I see that this person didn't really need to do all this. If they had just gone to a lawyer in the first place, we could have looked at your case from a strategic standpoint and said, don't do this, don't do that. And, this would not have been happening. So that's my spiel. That's basically the last stage of getting your case expedited, but not expedited, approved on time. One other area which, I can't list it all out right now, but there are times where you'll be eligible for what we call expedited processing. A lot of times you're looking at a humanitarian need, based on human needs, medical issues, facing homelessness, things like that. So those are the things that they would be looking at to decide to make to decide to approve expedited processing. Do keep in mind though, even if USCIS approves expedited processing, it doesn't mean that the day they approve expedited processing is the day that your case will be approved. It can still take several months, and I think that confuses people a lot. It can still take several months, but at least, you put your stuff on the forefront, and, sometimes USCIS makes mistakes, meaning delays can be caused because they lose your file. I'll tell you a funny story. Like when I was out on Christmas, a USCIS officer called me, but I was out of the office. I wasn't, around, so I couldn't, I wasn't available to take the call. USCIS officers don't call you, normally, unless there's like maybe they want to just get some clarification, but it's few and far between. So, yesterday I got a call from the same officer. I was like, okay, this officer keeps calling. What's up? What's going on? And the officer said, you know what, I'm just going to admit it, and just let you know we lost your client's file, and we've been trying to find it. We've looked everywhere. We cannot find this file. And so what we just wanted to know is, can you guys send us another copy of the file so we can make the decision as soon as possible? I was like, officer, you need to approve my client because you guys lost her file and you're very lucky that we have another copy of the file and we're sending it to you. So you better approve her. So, I mean, I was just being funny, but he better approve her. Anyway, so the point of what I'm saying is, sometimes they make their own mistakes and the delay is coming from them. So it is very important too that if someone said, how do you lose a file? Believe it or not, it happens a lot. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to an interview. Like when I go to interviews with clients, I always have the entire file with me because you get into the interview and the officer will be asking for something. I'll say, officer, we submitted it. Look on the table of contents. It's right there. He's like, well, I don't have it, and I just give him or her my copy. So that happens. So if you are somebody who chooses to represent yourself, you want to make sure that whatever you send to the government, whether it's immigration or any other governmental agency, to be honest, for that matter, that you always have a copy, so that if something like this happens and what will take them, what will allow them to make that decision quicker is you submitting a new file, that you are ready and available to submit exactly what you submitted. Same thing with your mailings. Like if you're mailing something to USCIS, you want to have a record of that so that if they lose your file or say, you never sent it to us, you have documentation and, your USPS label or FedEx or whatever showing that you sent it. One thing to note about USPS, if you do send something via USPS and you have a tracking number, you want to make sure that as soon as it shows that it was delivered, that you do save that right away, because that disappears after 4 months. USPS will basically remove it from their system after 4 months. So if, let's say, you've got a delay and then, after you do your inquiry, they're like, well, we don't have your file. We never had any submission. And you're calling them at like year 2 or something, you have no proof that you sent it. So it's important that you screenshot the delivery date and all that information so that if something like that happens, you can do it, which, I mean, we do that here at Upfront, but I'm just saying for those of you who are trying to do it yourself. Okay. All right. I talked too much. Let me see the questions I have and try to answer as many of them as I can before I got to jump off. Um, Someone says, can you file VAWA forms and ways to submit declaration later? There's nothing you can't do, but is it something that I recommend? No. I don't know, Chef Zweed or whatever. I don't know when you logged into this live, but I was saying to them that it is important that when you can submit everything that you can submit it. VAWA is one of those things that when you submit it, you should not wait later to submit your declaration. That at the very minimum is what you should be submitting, because that is basically telling your story of why you're abused. Like, not only are delaying your chances of an approval, you're also delaying your chances of even getting a prima facie determination letter. Now, if you're someone that you kind of already did this before you joined this live, then get off this live today and make sure you go write a declaration and amend your application and submit it. Don't wait for an RFE, amend it and submit it, okay? Once you ask for the physical, can you include all other evidence in the package, like wedding photos and other documents you have? Bush Solami, all of this depends. Sometimes USCIS will ask you for it when they ask you for the medical. So yes, you can, where they would say, submit your medical, and if there are any other things that you've not submitted, this is also a good time to submit it. Those typically tend to come in the form of an email when they ask you for those. What you have to understand is that the medical, when they ask you for your physical or your medical, those are for the I-485. So that's for you, the person seeking the 10-year or 2-year green card, right? And so they're looking at it for the 485. But the evidence, the other evidence of proof of good faith marriage, really goes under the I-130. It really goes under your I-130. So it depends on if they need that for your I-130. So if it says that, then you can submit that. Otherwise, if they still don't have enough, then during the interview, you want to make sure that you take as much as you can to the interview, okay? There's never too much stuff, by the way, okay? If you have 100 pictures, bring 100 pictures. You don't have to give them all 100, but when you get this, I have 100 pictures, how many do you want? Officer may say, okay, let me take a couple. But basically, like I keep saying to people, immigration is really about strategy, and understanding the human mind, and how to humanize clients, and understanding that officers are human as well. While a lot of times they're making decisions on strangers, so who they truly don't know if they're married. So many people have different types of marriage arrangements where their marriage may not look like the next person's marriage. So your job, as an applicant, is to show that even though my marriage is not a cookie cutter marriage, my marriage is still a legitimate marriage. And these are all the things that we have and the explanation for the things that we don't have. So those are the key things you want to think about. And that's where lawyering comes in, because that's what we've been taught to do. Is it generally faster for fiancé visa or marriage visa if you're married abroad? Generally faster for fiancé visa, not by a lot, but generally faster. But personally, this is personally, not legal. Personally, I would rather do a marriage-based consular processing green card. Why would I rather do that? Because I would rather, when my spouse comes into the United States, they already are a green card holder and we're done with the process. If you do a fiancé visa, you've got 90 days to get married and then do the adjustment of status. If you and your fiancé fight or decide when you come to America, marriage is not going to work, not going to file for you, not whatever, that person cannot become a green card holder again while they're in the United States. They have to leave the country. So the penalty is really high. So it's like you're going to do one whole, like almost year and a half process, and then you come to America and do another year process. Whereas you can just spend the 24 months, finish it there, and come into the country as a U.S. citizen, and most likely a 10-year green card holder. I'm talking very fast today, guys, because I'm trying to get as much as I can, without it. This is a good question. This person says, how can I show evidence of a T visa case? Will USCIS believe what I say without evidence to show it? USCIS is a body, But think about it this way. Well, the officer, every officer is different. It depends on how sincere and how compelling your stories are. When you tell your story, so your story is one form of evidence that you can tell. With a T visa, you report this to law enforcement. Sometimes law enforcement will interview you, and ask you questions about it, proving that, have you gone a psychological evaluation? Have you shown that you are ready and able to or cooperate with law enforcement to go over your story? So these are some of the things that they look at, and sometimes people don't think that they have evidence, but a lot of times they do. So when you're screened, by a lawyer, when a lawyer says, well, do you have that? And they're like, oh, wait, I actually have this, I actually have that. So it's not open and closed. There are just so many things that can be used as evidence in many cases that, for someone who doesn't do this on a day-to-day basis, you might not know. And that's where legal help helps. Bio, thank you so much. You're so sweet. I appreciate it. After I file for VAWA, can I send more evidence about abuse in marriage before the RFE? Because I do not want to wait for the RFE. Patel, you absolutely can. You want to make sure that you are including your alien number and your receipt number so that it's going to the right file. Okay. Okay, one more question, and then I got to go. My number is 407-995-6567. I'm going to repeat that again, 407-995-6567. You can also send a WhatsApp message to 404-333-8751, okay? And if all else fails when I get off the live, it's right there in my profile. Okay, this is my last question. Someone said in Orlando, is it okay? So again, the answer remains the same. Don't wait for immigration to ask you for stuff. Submit every single thing that you can, okay? I don't understand this question. Okay, so I've been in the US for 37 years. My daughter was in the military for 10 years, and she tried to file for me. The problem is I can't remember the date, but I can't find the date. Call us and schedule a consultation. We might be able to get that information for you through a FOIA. Okay, I entered my VAWA. I'm a mother of a five-year-old American, and his dad tried to get me deported before, so I moved to Florida, and now I'm afraid he'd find my address and send ICE to me. Well, if you submitted a VAWA application already, everybody loves Gigi. I wouldn't worry so much. If you haven't, definitely give me a call. Let's go over what exactly happened and what resources are available to you. Okay. All right, guys. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I have a very, very busy day ahead of me, but always grateful to be able to do what I do. Again, if you would like to schedule a consult, our number is 407-995-6567 or WhatsApp 404-333-8751. All right, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.